on the battlefield. And was one particular incident in Uhud. So the Prophet, he would get angry. But of course, that anger would be translated into something positive. Positive action. Take that action, sabbih, tasbih to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, go down prostration, worship Allah azza wa jal, do the best you can do. The fourth, the issue of terrorism. Now today we see that the Prophet ﷺ has been also accused as the first terrorist in the history of Islam. Terrorism is something new. Even until today, there is no one direct definition for terrorism. You cannot give one, just universal, I would say, definition for terrorism. And the Prophet ﷺ, unfortunately, was attacked with this accusation. And they have seen that from the actions of so many Muslims. So look, the Muslims are doing this. So why are they doing these actions unless they have some justification to it in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And Sheikh Yaser spoke about this a little bit. So in conclusion, inshallah, in response to these allegations, what do we say? That number one, some Muslims become apologetic and they start denying the facts that we have in our sources, like the age of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, the issue of Bani Qurayza and so on. By denying these now facts in our Islamic history, we think that we're doing good for Islam and Muslims. And that is not right. You should accept these facts, but still, you should defend these facts depends on the context, the historical context. It means try to explain to the public the way it should be done. You don't have to deny that. And there's a difference between authentic sources and historical accounts. And there's something different. Sheikh has also touched on this. When you say historical sources, some of our historians, they were just compiling stories, not necessarily advocating for these stories or even endorsing these stories. But at the same time, we have sources like Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. You should, once it's there, you should believe in these stories, of course, as we mentioned in these authentic books. Some answers with sentiments and emotions against intellectuals. SubhanAllah, we Muslims, very, very emotional people. When someone speaks about the Prophet ﷺ, about the Quran, anything like that, we get so emotional. And that's why when you get emotional, it blocks our intellect. We don't give intellectual response to these issues. I've been searching for, when it comes to the issue of Aisha radiallahu anha, I have, subhanAllah, checked so many websites, so many books defending the Prophet ﷺ and his marriage to Aisha radiallahu anha. It was probably one or two websites that can really challenge the intellect of this age when it comes to this case. Anything else besides that, or is emotional. The Prophet ﷺ was the most chaste man. Aisha, she loved the Prophet ﷺ, which is true. But there is something else beyond emotions that you need to use in order to defend the Prophet ﷺ. Some turn to culture, and therefore they fall short on evidences. And some they turn aggressive and physical, being angry because they're completely helpless. And in conclusion, what do we need to do as Muslims? Number one, Muslims have the full right, we need to realize that Muslims have the full right, like any other nation, to defend the honor of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Please don't be apologetic about this. This is not an issue of academia, as Sheikh Yaser mentioned. No, this is something that you as a Muslim are obligated to stand for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and his honor. Number two, the virtue of being angry for religious reasons does not warrant you becoming violent. Means being angry should be translated to something positive that you do and say. Number three, the best defense to the Prophet ﷺ against all these allegations is by you as a Muslim act the way the Prophet ﷺ acted. That's how people understand you. That's how people appreciate the life of Rasulullah ﷺ. Wallahi, subhanAllah, recently we were in Ilm Summit in Houston, and we had more than 150 people living there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks living there. Brothers and sisters coming from all over the world, studying subjects of knowledge and ilm. And amazingly, without even heavy, let's say, activity of da'wah or whatsoever, 2 of the workers in the hotel, they embraced Islam. Out of curiosity. See 150 people, men and women around, then he just got curious, said, what are you guys doing? Who are you? What do you do over here? So they become Muslims, subhanAllah. I'm not saying that we had, mashallah, a wonderful and perfect angels in the hotel, but at least those people, they just really held themselves to a standard that is acceptable, and of course in our understanding to Islam and the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muslims should be proud of their scholarly achievements, not completely run away from what our ulama did and said. But you need to distinguish between what is authentic and what is just a narrative story. And answering academic allegations is very dangerous, as Sheikh Yaser mentioned. If you're not qualified, don't go in there. Don't start, becoming emotional, answering these intellectual debates with emotional responses. It won't take you anywhere. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Means when you answer back with that which is better. What does that mean? It means to answer back in the same way they're talking to you is not still acceptable. The way they're talking to you, don't use that same techniques. Be better. Use something that's better, of course, from their techniques. And then just basically don't say that they started it. No, it's not about they started or we're going to finish it. It's about what is the best response that needs to be given to the public. Avoid these sentiments, of course, and emotional statements regarding the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And remember, when you talk, you're talking basically to intellectual and emotional crowds. Wallahi, we are underestimating the intellect of our people, Muslims and non-Muslims. And that's why when we talk, we try to hide some of the truth, try to disguise it and so on. No. They're more intellectual than you can understand or even imagine. So therefore, be truthful and upright when you defend the honor of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Walhamdulillah rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.